Webster is next on BCTV.
Good morning. The other day, I posed as a social studies teacher at Centennial High School in Coquitlam to canvass their opinions on anything from nuclear war to the Constitution. And you're going to meet me in the classroom with the students after the break. Talk about Daniel in the lion's den. Here am I, sitting on a tabletop in the lounge at Centennial High School in Coquitlam, of which, by the way, I happen to be not a distinguished graduate, but a graduate. Bill Melville gave me a certificate after speaking to a couple of his classes. And so today is an experiment. I've got no touch with teenagers at all nowadays. My kids are up and away. And I was challenged recently by Bill Melville that I knew absolutely nothing about the attitude of bright, competent students in our school system in British Columbia, and that's true. I tend, ladies and gentlemen, to damn the whole school system because of the complaints of a few. I tend to give the impression abroad that none of you can read, and none of you can write, and that certainly none of you can spell. And at the same time, I don't know what this generation is thinking. So with such a brilliantly bright cross-section, I'll give you my impressions first of all. I was brought up on the outbreak of Second World War. We knew there was going to be a war. We had come out of a depression. We just didn't know how bad the war was going to be, and we were going to make a world fit for all decent left-wingers to live in. You saw the mess you see now the mess that's been made of the world. I want to know what you people think of politics, of nuclear war, of living conditions, of working conditions, of trade unions, and all kinds of things. And I want you to be free to tell me what you think of my generation and their attitude and the mess we may or may not have made of things. First of all, question, how many of you belong to a political party? How many of you have strong political feelings? How many of you would roughly vote socialist of some kind, left-wing, further left than liberal in the next election? Oh my goodness. How many of you would vote liberal or further to the right in the next election? How many of you wouldn't bother to vote at all? One brave hand goes up, right? Next question. How many of you care anything about the Canadian Constitution? How many of you care if it comes back in one piece, a la Trudeau with Bill of Rights, in that fashion, the fashion he wants it?
How many support it or how many care? Like,
how many care about it coming back at all? Everybody cares about it coming back at all. All right. Have you any questions you'd like to ask me, any one of you, about the elderly people's attitude to society today?
What do you think of the Constitution and kind of enshrining the rights of Quebec and Ontario and forgetting about the rest of Canada, especially the West?
I think it's wrong, but I think the Constitution must come back in one way or another, and surely to goodness we can straighten it out in this country in due course.
So do you think the provinces should definitely have more say in it, or do you think it should be centralized?
I'd rather you tell me, because I'm a federalist, even if I'm not very keen on Trudeau. How many of you hate Trudeau? Who's going to tell me why they hate Trudeau?
Well, just a couple of days ago in the House of Commons, he openly admitted he was a liar. He said I didn't exactly tell the truth.
He confessed to lack of candor.
Yes, he lied.
But he didn't say he lied.
He didn't say he lied.
What do you say?
He came out almost and said he lied.
He said he lacked candor.
Yeah. Well, that's the same thing.
It was politics for lying.
You see him answer questions in the House. The Conservatives or the NDP get up and they ask him a question. He skirts the question totally, never gives them anything, and then sits back down with his rose.
Does this make you lose a little bit of faith in the House of Commons?
Yeah.
In the Liberal Party and in the Prime Minister, yes.
You're a partisan.
Yes.
You're a Tory.
Yes.
You come from a... why would you be a Conservative? How old are you?
18.
Why would you be a Conservative?
Because I believe in a free country, and I believe that every man should have the right to earn his own wage as much as he wants, and woman, pardon me, and woman, as much as he wants, and have the opportunity to make money, be free.
Well, now, who wants to contradict him on that? Does anybody want to contradict him on that? Is there room for unrestricted freedom?
There's just as much freedom in the Liberal government or in a government led by the NDP as there would be in the Conservative, if the Conservative Party was leading it.
No doubt in your mind at all?
No, none at all.
Yeah, there is, though.
Go
Okay,
on.
with the gas tax to British Columbia and Alberta, we don't see a tax going on to Ontario and Quebec's natural resources.
You see a big subsidy going to help them through the... How many of you are interested enough to say that the national energy policy is wrong, or could tell me why it might be wrong?
I think it's definitely wrong. Because, I mean, we're supposed to be giving them our energy, subsidizing them with our energy, so they can manufacture goods. And yet we have to pay more than world price for their manufactured goods, which we're subsidizing to begin with.
But shouldn't a nation share all of its wealth?
Yes, it should. We're Canada. We're not BC, and only BC.
But we're
We're a nation.
Why are we referred to as the Western provinces by the Liberal government?
Well, you can't just whine about it and complain. You got to do something about it. And just complaining is not going to do anything about it. You have to stand behind the government and what they're trying to do.
It's not our government.
It's not our government.
We don't have a representative.
What do you mean it's not your government?
Of course it's our government.
We don't have an
We don't
elected
have a
representative.
Well, that's your fault.
It's not my fault. I didn't vote.
Well, not your
Just
fault.
let's get at this point. Who says that the government in Ottawa is not their government? Why do you say it?
Because they're not doing things for us. They're not.
Yeah, but we have a government, whether it's Conservative representation, NDP, or Liberal. We're represented in the House.
Yeah, but we're not represented by anyone in the cabinet. We're not represented by the party in power.
Because
we don't even have one representative in the
Because
cabinet.
we didn't vote Liberal. If we had voted Liberal, we
Yeah,
would
but
have
why should we vote Liberal if we don't believe in
Well, listen,
voting
I've got to correct you all here and just put you back on the right tracks again. We are fully represented in the House of Commons. The fact that our MPs are not Liberals does not mean you are not represented in the House of Commons. Just because you haven't got Liberals, do you think you're not represented in the House of Commons?
Yeah, but a Western MP doesn't have a part in the decision-making process.
What opinion do you kids have? How many would vote separatists tomorrow? 2 hands only. That's rather encouraging. Have any of you seen Knutson or Carl Nickel or Christie in action, the separatist leaders?
Yeah, but they seem to be they remind me of Hitler when I watch them. They're not the reason I would vote separatist.
I haven't got your politics quite straight yet. What are you again?
I am a resident of British Columbia.
Answer the question.
Okay, I'm a socialist who believes that BC or all of the Western provinces should be either represented in the federal government by ourselves, or we should be on our own.
Okay. We're not getting it. You said something. Would you say it again louder?
Well, just because we vote for Conservative doesn't mean automatically that Conservatives have to be in the party. I mean, if the majority voted in Trudeau, I suppose Trudeau's in power.
Who will the next Prime Minister of Canada be, in your view?
I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't Trudeau.
You?
Probably Trudeau.
I think whoever takes over after Trudeau.
Who? Whoever takes over after?
I think it'll be a Conservative.
Conservative.
Trudeau.
Not sure.
I'd say it'd be Trudeau, yeah.
McEachen or Chrétien?
Actually, I would like to see Chrétien, but I think it'll be a Conservative.
Probably Trudeau.
John Crosby.
I knew there was something odd about you. Let's go down the lot. Okay, next Prime Minister of Canada after the next election, whenever.
A liberal, for sure.
A liberal.
Conservative.
Trudeau for sure.
Conservative.
Mr. Guy with the curly hair and the glasses.
Trudeau's predecessor.
Beautiful blonde in the front row, sexist remark.
Probably liberal.
Liberal.
A conservative.
Liberal.
Liberal.
Trudeau.
Unfortunately, liberal.
Joe Clark.
Joe Clark. You've been brought up in an area of saturation of radio and television, and a fair amount of print run by a monopoly press, by and large, excepting the Columbian in this particular district. What do you think of radio and television? I'd like some of you to give me your views quite strongly and loudly on it. If you have any negative views, please let me know.
Worthless.
My old socialist friend says worthless, right? Then give me another.
Some of it's a waste of time.
What kind of, what's junk?
Like Sheriff Lobo, Dude of Hazard, those are really junks. Why don't they put on some good shows like the documentary or
60 Minutes?
Yeah, that was great. 60 Minutes was.
W5?
What about 60 Minutes so it's American? You know, why is CBC taking over all the channels? We don't need all the Canadian programs. We need the American programs.
Yeah, I don't think that's
There's no way that CBC is going to take over. They took Channel 8 last year, and CBS is now distorted in my TV set anyway. And I can't see 60 Minutes sometimes.
You missed that.
Yeah.
Do you object to any interference with the cable or the broadcasting by any government body in Canada?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. They should leave it alone. Yeah. Like pay TV, I mean, they're complaining about it so much, like Canadian content and all that. I mean, a lot of the stuff you see on Canada, it's either it's Canadian television. They don't want American television yet they're trying to always copy American television. Like those sitcoms like they put on, I don't know, what is it, Flappers or something like this, and Circus of the Stars. I mean, it's not even as good as American, and American's not that great. So I mean, if they shouldn't criticize it if they can't do better.
How many of you sit and watch that American stuff? All of you?
Sure.
Is that not right?
I think it's been on too long though. Like so most of those shows are the shows that were popular a long time ago, and they're trying to milk more out of them. But they're not any good anymore. They've been on too long. And
okay, next question. How many of you read a newspaper every day? You don't really, do you?
There's the comics.
The comics, eh? For instance, can you point to me any story that has upset you or annoyed you in the media at all?
The Terry Fox.
Terry Fox thing has been overplayed, is that right?
Sure.
Anything else?
Yeah, they're going into his personal life, which they shouldn't do.
You feel he should be given some peace and quiet and dignity?
Yeah.
Well, the Vancouver Sun took a proper hammering for that, and they certainly did deserve it. Now, I don't think I've explored the political thing very well with you at all. How about you, sir? Do you have any strong views in politics? Would you fight a war for a faith?
No, well, yes, if I believed in it.
How about anybody else with strong views? You see, I've got the suspicion that you're also affluent. No, seriously speaking, that you're also affluent, that you haven't had the opportunity to whip up enthusiasm about a political solution. Would anybody disagree with me? Apart from my socialist friend in the corner. Would anybody disagree with me?
Yeah.
How long have you been in this country?
Not too long.
Not too long. Do you have
I see enough people to decide. Most Canadians are not really patriot to their country.
Oh, they're not at all.
Yeah.
Why not? Why are Canadians not outspoken patriots?
Because they don't believe in their government, for the first thing. It's separated. You have people back east sort of ruling over the people out west here.
Canadians, it's just a name.
Go on.
So why should the country be together when it's almost in two parts as it is now?
Well, I came here 35 years ago to be a Canadian. And even if I got annoyed at Trudeau and his mob, I'd never think that of separating. I mean, I'm a Western, I suppose, but I'm a Canadian.
Well,
don't you feel like a Canadian?
I feel like a Canadian, but I don't feel I'm part of the East, whereas
I see all my stuff being taken out of the earth or chopped down for here and being shipped back there, and then it's being produced back there. I don't think that's quite fair.
Hewers of wood and drawers of water. What do you plan to be when you graduate, when you finish your education?
Me?
Yes, you.
Teacher.
Teacher. That'd be interesting to do that again. Can we get round them all and we can talk about careers? You're all going to university, of course.
Yes. Of course. Yeah.
Louder.
Yes.
Is there a single nay? Not a single nay.
What about
Are you a nay? Why are you not going to university? I don't want to pry into your private affairs, but do you have a particular reason that doesn't take you towards university?
Well, I think if I have a keen interest in what I'm doing, I don't really need the extra training. I get it on the job, and if I'm willing to learn, I should be having the opportunity.
Do you have a career in mind?
I'm going to go in graphics.
You're going to go in no, but you're going to be a creative artist of some kind. And you've either got the talent or you haven't got the talent.
You can't be taught that kind of thing, really. You can get the background, but you can't be really taught how to be creative.
Let me try right round. Do you have a plan for a career?
I was planning on being unemployed.
Typical Canadian.
No, I was going to become a accountant or something like that.
Professional.
Yeah.
I'd like to be a physicist.
Aha! A nuclear bomber.
Not if it's not necessary.
Daycare.
Daycare worker.
Engineer.
Engineer.
Engineering.
Probably social work.
I'd like to be a cop.
Why not? Just let's stop there for a moment. What, oh no, let's finish them and I'll come back to that. Miss?
I want to go into psychology.
Political scientist. I want to be an actor.
An accountant.
You're well on the way.
An accountant.
Business administrator.
Right, let's do the front rows now too. But anyway you like. Chap in the blue outfit.
I'd like to be an architect.
An accountant.
Anyway you like.
Teacher.
Teacher.
Architect.
Architect.
Education.
Teacher.
Salesman.
Lawyer.
Lawyer.
Journalist or lawyer.
Make it the second one.
Journalist.
Journalist.
Pilot. Structural engineer.
Journalist.
A journalist or a lawyer.
1, 2, 3, 4.
We represent the catalyst.
You represent the catalyst, the paper.
Yes.
All right, write me an editorial on the possibility of nuclear war in the future. Now.
Now?
I want 2 sticks of type right now. I've got to fill a hole in the paper.
Well, ever since our generation was born, we've been living with this threat. But it's not an all-out threat. It's just always there, and, you know, we have to go on. We know there's nothing we can do about it, whereas your generation, you always knew that you could hop on the train, grab your gun, and you could go trudging off to the trenches. But we know that there's nothing really we can do to determine our own fate. If the bomb comes, it comes. But the only thing we can do is fight within the government.
Kind of depressing, isn't it? How do you feel journalist to be? Are you a political animal?
I've got my own political beliefs.
Yeah, see, nobody knows what I am. I'm a chameleon, which is a bit gutless of me, and I've never nailed my colors to a mast, you know. People say that think Webster's a socialist, that think Webster's a fascist, that think Webster licks Trudeau's boots, that think Webster was too nice to Clark last week or whenever. So maybe as a journalist, you've got to kind of stay in the middle and play a middle road. We're talking about careers. How do you regard your... Can we have a spelling test now, please?
Sure, why not? Just as long as you're spelling too.
Give me a test.
You a test. Okay, the Greek goddess Aphrodite.
A-P-H-R-O-D-I-T-E, Aphrodite. I'll give you one. This is my standard question, which I ask of youngsters who come to look for a job. Succinct. It means short or concise and is properly pronounced succinct. No help from the audience. No, that's not fair. Who wants to spell succinct?
Oh, I know.
Oh, try it.
S-U-C-C-I-N-T, right?
Almost, but not quite.
It's S-U-C-C-I-N-C-T.
Good. Now you can give me a word to spell.
Aesthetic.
Oh, that's easy. You mean aesthetic or ascetic?
Aesthetic.
A-E-S-T-H-E-T-I-C.
That's the one.
Aesthetic. Spell the other one. After talking to you for the past few minutes, you've certainly changed my conception of grade 11, 12 class Centennial High School. One, you're affluent, you tend to be smug, you're not very excited about very much, and your biggest worries are probably whether or not to take a civil service job with an indexed pension or cross a picket line. Who's going to argue with me?
We're too affluent to argue.
Would you, how many of you here would not cross a picket line? Go on.
It depends on the circumstances. It depends on how important it was for you to cross it.
Depends if
Now,
I heard there were baseball players.
how many of you feel that trade unions really are the backbone of a civilized, sophisticated community, and why?
Well, I think there's too much feather bedding by the unions, though. Like there's, I think that when there's jobs that really aren't, somebody goes there, they don't do anything. You know, they just sort of stand around and they collect, you know, like $20 an hour or whatever they get. I don't think that's fair.
How can you say that? How many people have you seen sitting around?
Take the post office, for instance. Its members are so against being observed. Now, what can you put that down to? Paranoia? Or just because they really aren't doing anything, have too many people for the job that they're doing, and if someone was watching them, it would become apparent.
What do you put it down to?
I think it's the latter. Because I've talked to people, a friend of mine's father's a postman, I've talked to people who have been inside, and when a supervisor isn't there, now this is just hearsay, I can't back this up, but the people, you'll find that about 1 in 5 has a job that they can do continuously. And the other 4 will be doing things intermittently when a supervisor shows up.
So you're a bit unsympathetic to the demands of certain public service unions?
Indeed.
Anybody else of that ilk, or anybody want to argue with them?
I think the unions are very important, but there needs to be a bit of a change. I think they've kind of lost the original idea of a union as to protect the workers. Now there just seem to be protecting, yeah, the union bosses are protecting their own interests.
I know a person who's in the union, the dock workers union, and I think he gets maybe 2 days of work a month. But that's what he does. He goes and sits in the union halls. He doesn't get any payment for the other times he's there. But they're still encouraging him to be there and wait and sit all day in the union hall to maybe go out. He might even get an hour that day if there's a job comes in really late. But you never get a full-time work.
Does he want full-time work?
Oh, he'd love to be able to work, but the union has all the old guys, and the old guys go out to their regular jobs every day, and the young guys, they just sit around and they can't make a living that way.
Yeah, they're the casuals. Okay, now, how many else of you have strong feelings about, say, the current Cupid disputes, or the talk of an industrial war by the unions? Is it not justified in some cases?
No. They're too strong-armed about it.
Who said that?
It is justified.
It is?
Of course it is. Yeah, well, my mother is in the Cupid union. The job she's doing for the government, or for the school district of Burnaby in this case, she gets paid $2.50 less than a person doing the same job but not working for the government. So I think the government, the teachers, the staff and such around Centennial School and the other schools, and people who work in the auditoriums and the ice arenas and that, I think they are getting ripped off, and I think they have the right to demand an equal wage.
But you're all going to be taxpayers. I mean, the taxpayer is the bottomless pit when it comes to giving what may be feather-bedded in some cases, layabout jobs. I'm not talking about your mother. The unlimited indexing, the unlimited increases from the taxpayers. Are any of you concerned as to how much the taxpayer can stand? Or are you also used to unemployment insurance, a short job, go on UIC, a short job, go on UIC again?
Well, I was just reading in the newspaper in Surrey, taxes, school taxes have gone up $134. Now that's quite a bit for somebody to pay. Also, the strikes here, I think it's pretty good. The City of Vancouver, GVRD, is saving $400,000 a day by not paying these guys. Now, do we get a tax break for that at the end of the year?
No, you're going to have to give them the increase that's finally negotiated at the end of the strike. But do you look forward to growing up in a society which is totally unionized and, you know, almost everybody going to be a civil servant?
The unions are too strong.
Why are they too strong?
Well, like that CUPE thing, like down at the dumps. I mean, down at the dumps, they sit there with all these logs and they put nails, and if somebody like Smith, right, or somebody like that, they want to keep their business going, they're stopping them from going in just because they're not getting right. I mean, they're putting nails down, and they found all those baseball bats everywhere. I mean, okay, fair that they get their more money, but I don't think they should interfere with everybody else, like try and, you know, bring up the violence. Like,
but maybe nobody should be allowed to cross any picket line ever, even if it's an illegal picket line.
That means they can shove a picket line anywhere.
Hey?
They shove a picket line at the school that no one can come across. Former students union.
If it's like the QP strike, they should be able to cross picket line if the QP workers are striking a non-union dump. I mean, they have the right to cross that line. They've got to make a business. I mean, that's the only way they can do it. And if that's picketing that dump, it's not right.
I presume most of your fathers are members of union, and your mothers too.
No.
No? A minority only. Okay, let's try something else. I gather, though, that none of you would refuse to join a union if you had to, would you?
Yes.
You would. Why?
Because I'm not going to join anything where I'm told what to do. Number one, if it's my boss, that's one thing. But not some outside people saying, okay, we don't think you're getting enough money. There are people, I know people in the school whose parents are on the CUPE strike, and they say their parents don't want to strike. They're losing money. They're losing more money now than they'll probably gain when they get their increase.
Surely it's a democracy, a good union, the greatest good of the greatest number.
No, it isn't.
Not always.
No.
Because Surrey is an example. They would have settled, except the other districts haven't settled, so the CUPE union says they have to go out.
But don't you kids realize that even though there are union excesses, perhaps in some cases now, that if it weren't for strong unions, we'd be back to child labor in the mines and a 50-hour or a 60-hour week?
Well, they exercise their own practices too. Like take for example the last strike at Simon Fraser, when it was the secretaries that were going out. When they held their union meetings, they take it in halls in the worst parts of Vancouver, and all these women, these young women, and they hold it in the middle of the night. They didn't want to go down there, and so only the true, you know, the people who wanted to strike were the ones who got to vote.
Yeah.
Well, like when it started out, the Industrial Revolution, it was bad because there are managers and the people in charge taking advantage of the workers. But ever since then, the unions have been getting stronger and stronger, and maybe 20 years ago, it hit a good point. It was pretty well balanced. But now it's going over in the opposite directions, that the unions are stronger than the managers. A union can decide we're going to go on strike. They can't fire the people. They can't hire any new people, so the business goes out. Mm-hmm. And so when you get these unions in large corporations and affecting large masses of people, that can just, you know, destroy the whole thing.
How are you going to prevent it? You're going to legislate against strong unions?
No. What's wrong? Okay, for instance, the Seagram brewery strike. I don't know when that was, years ago.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah. What good did it do them to go out on strike for more wages? The company said, we can't afford it. They said, yes, you can. They went out on strike, and they closed them down. They all lost their jobs. It didn't do them a bit of good.
Well, it may sound out of character for me, but if it had not been for union men 50 years ago, there'd be no 40-hour week today. It'd be a 60-hour week.
That's true. We need more unions even after that. Well, I mean, I've seen guys working in McDonald's getting $2.85 an hour, doing 5 times the amount of work I do, and I'm in CUPE, and I get paid $6 an hour skating around a rink, and that's sure it's a responsible job, but they do 6 times the amount of work I do.
But you're protected by the union.
Of course I am, and I don't like the strike because I'm part-time. It's affecting my money supply.
But you wouldn't cross that picket line, would you?
Well, I support the picket line. I know what they want. All the people that are working full-time deserve what they're asking for.
Who's the highest paid person here in the part-time work? $6 an hour. Any bidders on that one? 10. Say again. 10?
10.
What do you do?
I'm a cashier.
Oh, in a
food store.
In a food store. And that's non-union.
No, that's union.
Is that union?
How many hours a week do you get, though?
From 0 to 20.
That's all she needs, though.
Well, that's good. And what's your union?
I don't know, retail
Retail
clerks.
wholesale. No, retail clerks. I think
Retail
it is.
clerks.
Forgive me if I'm wrong. I think it's a retail clerks. Anybody approach $10 an hour? Who's the lowest paid person here?
Zero.
How much?
I don't work.
Who works for McDonald's?
I used to.
How much did you get?
They started me at $2.65, and I worked there a full year, and I was only making $2.90 when I left.
Was it worth the money?
No.
But you were
I work at another restaurant now, and I'm making double that now, and the conditions are a lot better.
And living at home, of course.
Uh-huh.
When I was a youngster, in fact, when I wasn't an oldster too, we had a nice, settled kind of social state in that even when a couple wanted a divorce, they didn't get a divorce. Social pressures kept them together. Would any of you care to predict for me what kind of family life might be in your adult years ahead? That's a heavy one, but let's try it. I'm not asking you to make a personal prediction about yourself. What do you see around you? Do you see the two professionals, the social worker and the teacher, both with good incomes, both with index pensions, both with freedom to travel, and kids later on maybe will adopt one? Or do you see any return to the husband and wife and the 3 kids and getting by on one page? Not your own views, but give me what you think is going to happen to society 10 years down the road for you in your relationships.
Get back to more conservative again. We can see during the trench, it's kind of like more style of liberal and conservative, so on and so on. And we just have this decade is the more liberal kind of family. So next one should be the
more conservative.
Most conservative.
Okay, who else is going to give me a view of the future? The young lady in the Shetland sweater.
I think that both husband and wife are going to have to work to support a family, and even to buy a home, because right now the housing situation is really bad. So even to afford an apartment, probably both people will have to work.
How is even a couple going to buy a house at $150,000?
I don't know.
Mind you, would any of your generation buy a small basic house with an unfinished basement, no fitted carpets, no fridge, no stove? Would you?
No.
What do you expect in the way of a house?
Well, my friends of ours just bought a house, and they bought it carpeted and finished, and everything's finished except the basement, and they have to finish that themselves. I don't know.
Come on, tell me.
No, honestly, I don't.
You do know. Eh?
No, I don't. I didn't ask.
A lot of money. Now, do you give me your view of relationships of the future?
I think it's going to be, maybe it's going back the other way, but I think marriage is going to be gone. I think a lot of people are just going to be living together. You know,
I think that there's going to be more married couples that are going to be getting married later on in life, like in their late 20s or up to mid-30s, I think, is when it's going to be starting more, because people are going to be wanting to establish careers, and when they get married, the career is still going to be more important than having children and having a family.
I have no views on that from the front row. How about some views from the front row? The $10 an hour girl. Cashier money. Go on.
I don't know. I just think that everybody's going to be working, so there's probably going to be more disruptions in the family life.
Would you like to have a family?
Sure, but not right away.
No, but how many kids would you think, just ideally, down the road? 1?
2 or 3.
3?
2 or 3.
How about you?
I think that the people will be getting married later in life. Both will have to be working in order to afford prices.
Smaller families?
Smaller families.
Adopt somebody else's baby?
Babies aren't very easy to get. It's going to be more older children when they're school age, and they're the children with problems.
Does this make for an easier life for young people nowadays, these more informal relationships?
We're going to pay for it in the end.
Why would it? Why?
Because,
I mean, don't tell me that standard...
People that
don't tell me that standards of morality are any worse than they were in my boy's day or in my day.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of couples are only having one child, and they're not really paying for themselves. Like, I mean, when they go on in elderly, old age pensions, you know, I mean, that money that they paid all those years wasn't used to support them now. It was used to support the people on old age pensions when they were paying. And so there's not going to be hardly any people working. There's going to be like the teenage, like the, you know, older people are going to, there's going to be more of older people than there is for, you know, to support the younger children. We're going to have to pay a lot more money to support our parents when they're on old age pensions.
Are drugs a thing in this society today, or are they gone? I was one of the hysterical people who used to rant and rave on about the permissiveness and the bad old days of the heroin. What are drugs any threat to you people in your society today?
We don't want them to be.
You don't want them to be?
If you don't want them to be, it should be a personal choice, like anything.
That's the way it seems. In the 60s, there was a big thing where everyone should, there's a big conflict about drugs. There's not that conflict now because it seems to be more of an accepted thing. The people who do it, fine, they can do drugs if they want. The people who don't do it, just don't do it. And it's a totally personal choice now.
Go around a little bit on that. Take the guy in the corner, too, the political scientist.
I have to agree with him. If the person doesn't
You're not
want
that keen on agreeing with him half the time.
Well, sometimes. But no, I have to agree with him that way. It doesn't bother me either way.
It's not a pressing menace among youngsters today.
No, I don't.
Well, it's become really commonplace. So, like, it's instead of being shocked by finding out that your friend, you have a friend who might be on drugs and stuff, it's just that you accept it because that's just the way things are.
Don't you think it's becoming a little bit too permissive?
No, well, there's in a school like Centennial, for instance, there's really no hard drugs.
Oh, come on.
Well, I mean, there's dope and there are other hard drugs, but I don't know that many people.
Somebody tell me what you're talking about. What's in a school setting? What's a hard drug, miss?
There's acid, there's speed, everything's around.
Everything's around,
Everything's
but not
available.
everyone does it.
That's-
a lot of people smoke dope, but you know, not a lot of people do hard drugs.
But if one of your friends smoked dope, that would be no cause for staying away from them, would it?
No.
If they dropped acid, though.
There's a big problem. It depends the type of people you hang around with, more or less. Because I moved here 2 or 3 years ago, and I had a real problem fitting in because I'd start hanging around with the group, they'd start smoking dope, doing acid and everything like that. And it was really hard to try and adjust to find just the right people to be with. And a lot of times, you'll do things because everybody else is.
Peer pressure, I believe the teachers call it. But have you to be strong to stay away from peer pressure?
Yeah. No, there's a lot of groups. There's a lot of groups in this school that, you know, really like different groups, and you can always, if you want to, you can find another group. If the one you're in is really getting kind of bad, you can always move on to another group.
It's not that
I'm
easy.
kind of getting off the line of questioning I was trying to get at. I mean, I think this is one of the best schools in BC. What do you think of it?
The best.
Now, what I was wondering if in your general source of acquaintanceships you regarded, for instance, I hear all kinds of horror stories about members of the legal profession or members of the accountancy profession, that everybody's doing coke. There's none of that around in your social circle, is there?
Yeah. If you've got the money, there is.
That's very expensive.
That's West Bands.
It is around.
Is booze a problem? Probably is. Is booze a problem?
Depends
what
what
you
you
drink
want.
it.
You make one.
Yeah. So you got to compare alcohol.
Would you say your generation is a reasonably temperate, well-balanced lot?
No.
Yes.
Our area is.
Louder.
I agree, yeah.
No, you say.
Yes.
Yes, you say.
I missed the
Depends if
Would you say that your compatriots are a reasonably temperate, well-balanced lot, or are they not?
I think we're more informed now than in other ages. So we do tend to be a lot more calm because we don't have to.
Is your generation any more permissive or less permissive than the previous one?
I think they experience more and they don't know how to handle it.
This generation?
Yes, this generation. They jump in with both feet, whereas you had to sort of dig in for the information when you,
And
in
now
your
it's on a
time.
platter. Now, you've been giving me your individual opinions on some of the social problems, and there's a couple more I want to pick up from you. On drugs and permissiveness.
Yeah, to some people, drugs are not a problem because they're not interested, for one. Number two, of my circle of friends, which might range up to about 10 close and 50 not so close, I couldn't think of one that would take drugs. And I don't think it's a regular problem in Centennial. I don't think it's a regular problem in the community. It is a problem, let's say, in the world, but before it sounded like it was rampant and every second person was into it continually.
Have you seen a change in your day in the attitude towards it?
Well, the knowledge, I don't have any knowledge really of drugs in this school, personally. When I was in junior high, I knew there was more people involved in it.
Ma'am, in the front row, you wanted to say a piece on this, on the individual aspects of what people are saying here today.
Well, I was concerned that some of the opinions people have will be taken as opinions of the whole student body, which is not right. There is, admittedly, a group of students in Centennial that do drugs, that are involved with drugs, but it is very hard to attend this school and to have a regular drug habit. There's just no way you can get through your classes.
It's not really what I wanted to get at. In society as a whole, would you tell me that drugs is something that people who want to do it should do it, but that most people don't? Would you tell me that?
It has never been a concern for me, and people are free to do what they want to do. There's no pressure, like, oh, you're not cool because you don't smoke dope. There's none of that.
Yes.
I have a very close friend who smokes dope, and I couldn't care less, because if she doesn't do it around me, it doesn't affect me.
Fair enough, well said. There's another esoteric subject I've been asked to mention, and that's the question of equality among men and women. Is there at all a male chauvinist attitude, or has it died out with my generation? Who's going to come up on that one?
It still depends on the person.
Come on, the guy in the green sweater. You pointed out to me as a potential male chauvinist pig.
If and when I get married and I have children, my wife won't work until my kids, say about 12. I think myself, I think once I'm married, I don't think I want my wife to work.
If you want your wife to work?
Yeah. I don't think she will. If I can make enough, if I can make the money to have us live comfortably, I don't see why she has to work.
Can you find such a woman, do you think?
Certainly. There's a lot of old-fashioned people.
Why should she not work because you don't want her to?
If she could make the money for both of you to live comfortably, would you stay home and look after the kids?
No.
No.
Archie Bunker here.
It comes to your ego.
No.
Sure it does.
Places in the kitchen.
Was that a joke? Was that a joke? Say that again.
Women's places in the kitchen.
Yes.
You've forgotten something else.
What?
Barefoot and pregnant. So won't go that far.
I'll never marry you.
Today's women are becoming more aware of themselves. Go ahead, try to find that woman, because everybody's into finding their own sense of who they are and how much they can push themselves to the farthest. Nobody's going to be satisfied with, like, letting somebody walk over them. You're a person. You've got a whole sense inside of you. You've got to find out what you are. You just can't be controlled.
In other words, if you want to go into the medical profession, you're going to be I'm just skating over it. You're going to be a doctor, not a nurse.
No, you don't have to. You can go as far as you want to go, but you should have no one say, okay, you're my wife. That's it. That's enough.
I think a woman
you should go as far as you want to go.
A woman who is going into a life like that and knows openly that, like, if she's going to marry someone who says that, and she openly goes into that, I think she's getting just what she deserves, because she's the one who's going to marry a man who's going to say, you're staying home and taking care of the kids, cooking my dinner, I want it on the table at 6 o'clock. But, like, if the woman knows that her husband's going to be, you know, have a more open relationship, then, like, if I was a woman, I wouldn't marry someone who was going to be the total boss.
What's the ideal age for a mature relationship? I want to ask the girl in the brown thingy.
You mean, what's the age to get married, like?
Well, yeah, but, you know, I'm frightened to say married in case somebody slaps me in the teeth
Or-
in case it's old-fashioned.
That all depends on the person. Like, I'd say late 20s, because until then, like right now, everybody's pretty unsure about what they're doing and everything, and to rush right into any really deep relationship right now, it's a joke. You don't know what you're getting into.
And they want to disagree with that?
I think she's right. I think I think people until they are like late 20s at least shouldn't really be able to make that decision because they've got so many other things in their life. They should set themselves up first.
No, because it depends. Okay, we come from a big city, right? It's Vancouver. There are a lot of people, a lot of opportunities, a lot more. I came from a smaller town. Now, I noticed that the people here seem to marry later for some reason, but there they marry a lot younger because there isn't that opportunity. And I think if a woman wants to be a housewife, wants to marry, settle down, have kids, that's her choice.
Do you fancy, you know, when you get married, that you'll have children and put them in a daycare center from the moment they're able to crawl?
No, I don't think that's right. I think that you should give some love and care to the kids. Otherwise, they'll turn out not knowing what it is, and that's how society gets screwed up. Nobody has time for anybody else. We're in little enclosed walls.
Can you, from your age and generation, see it happening around you, that kind of thing, where the kids get pushed to the wall because of economic pressure, or easy divorce or separation? Can you see it happen around you?
Yeah, I can.
You?
Yeah.
Is it really sad?
Well, I think it is because personally I wouldn't want to stick my kid in a daycare when it was only 1 month old or something. And you miss everything. You miss the first step, the first word and everything. And I wouldn't want to put my kid in a situation like that. I'd rather take the time off work or even quit my job for, say, 5, 6 years till the child's in school.
All subject to being able to afford it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but why should the mother have to quit the job? A child needs the father's love and attention just as much as it needs a mother. And just one of the partners shouldn't be assigned to, well, kitchen duty. You know, you're a woman, you had the child, so you take care of it.
Well, practically in this day and age, though, it is equal, yes, but men still have more opportunity than women, and it's not really.
It's not going to change until we get out there and start fighting for what we deserve.
Come back over here again. I want to ask you a question. Are you telling me that a man is as capable of rearing and giving that inborn maternal love to the child as the mother?
Paternal.
Hmm?
Paternal.
Is paternal the same as maternal?
Yeah, from the father.
No, but I was saying the maternal love.
From the mother.
Isn't the child bonded to the mother more than to the father?
Well, they still needs a father's
I'd like to see a father breastfeed.
It's really, it's biology has nothing to do with it.
Pardon?
Biology has nothing to do with it. A mother is, from the minute she has the baby, from the minute she finds out she's pregnant, she's trained that she is the one who's supposed to take care of the child. And the father is automatically just pushed to the side. And I'm surprised that a lot of men don't reject that and say, well, you know, he's my child too.
It's a different role. It's a different role, surely.
Well, there's no reason why not.
I don't agree with that because fathers now are taking, like, they're going through the whole pre-birth steps with the mother. They're going to, you know, prenatal classes and everything.
You think it's all phony?
No,
I don't.
It's nice to think that, okay, instead of the mother quitting her job and taking care of the baby, that the man would. But in reality, how many men, even though society is becoming more liberated, how many men would quit their job and raise a child and say to their wife, you go out and work? I don't think society is ready for that. I don't think men are that liberated yet that they can say the woman can take over and I'll be the mother for a while. I don't think society is
Aren't you desexing the male altogether?
No,
No, let me hear the women in this.
I really don't feel that. I feel that we're getting more liberated in time, but I don't feel we're ready to say that the men would actually, in reality, take over and do what, and change roles. That's not possible right now.
Are there any old-fashioned dissenters among the women who believe it's a woman's role to bring up the child and not?
I do.
Why
Definitely, because I believe that the woman is the only one that's capable of giving the child the love and care that it needs. I don't think a man can really handle that.
The mother brings up the child. Am I wrong again, I suppose? We skipped over any serious thoughts. We only got one good clip I can use earlier on from my socialist friend in the back row, and one good clip from the journalist in the front row. But are any of you really concerned about the prospects of a nuclear war?
Yeah.
You?
I think war is inevitable. It's going to come. I don't know if it's going to be a nuclear war or not, but it's going to come. I think the way the USA and Russia are going, they're on a collision course. It was said that last night.
Don't you think that the balance of terror on each side will keep us away from the abyss, spelled A-B-Y-S-S?
What's the point?
No, I think there's going to be a war. I would think probably before the end of this decade.
What's the point of having a war if there's no world left
How do you know?
to rule?
It could be just a normal.
I think if there was any, I think if there's any politician who had any sense of conviction right now, he'd be pushing for something like a total nuclear disarmament of the world, because that's the. I mean, the only way to remove every chance of a nuclear war is to get rid of every nuclear weapon.
The only trouble is,
some person's going to shove it in a silo somewhere on some island off in the Caribbean and not tell anybody, and when everybody else is all perfectly
It's better one than thousands.
No, it is
Even
not.
if someone hides one.
No,
Even if,
it's
people will do it on both sides. But as long as you get rid of
you're a socialist dreamer.
That
okay,
can't happen.
I'm an idealist, but
Okay,
I mean,
next one. Some of the women on nuclear war, do you wake up nights dreaming about the possibility like we did during the Cuban crisis?
Why be afraid of it? If it happens, it happens. We're going to have to face it then. There's nothing we can do about it now. It's out of our hands.
You wouldn't join a political party or try to form part of a government?
You can be afraid of it, but that's all.
it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be out of our hands. It should be in our hands.
But it isn't.
I think it's up to the individual and what they think. You can say, okay, well, it's out of my hands, but there is things that you can do to stop it.
But you're not fearful of it?
Sure, I'm fearful of it. Everybody's fearful. They don't know what to do. But the thing is that you have to get involved and take the right measures and talk it out.
But it doesn't affect your lifestyle or the thoughts of your future?
Sure it does.
I don't think the balance of terror is very effective, because there's people on both superpowers who think that they can win the war.
Back in
China right now, they
1917
have underground tunnels and stuff.
Yeah, they've got an air raid
And they
shelter system in China.
They go by percentages, right? It's by how many people are going to survive and stuff.
I'm glad I'm 60 odd and that you're the young people. At least I don't think I'll have to face it,
Back
but you
in
never know.
1917, during the Soviet Revolution, the new communist government said that it was their goal to communize the entire world. Sure. And with what they've done so far, they aren't finished yet. And how can something like détente or anything else like that exist when the other side, if we're willing, we might be willing to back down, but how can you always back down? Because every year they might go farther and farther, and one day you got to make a stand, because they're going to eventually they're trying to take away all the freedom.
Wouldn't you rather be red than dead?
No.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Yes.
Of course.
What's the point?
Well, I mean, life is all you got. I mean, politics is just one small part of life, just like religion is one small part of life.
But I wouldn't want
There's
to be-
nothing more. There's nothing more important than life itself.
But take a look at the life that they're leading.
Yeah, but it's a life. I wouldn't want
Big
it to
deal.
live.
A communist
come
life
on,
is better
think,
than no
think
life.
of the life. It isn't that bad.
Or a communist.
It's more important to exist.
Suppose,
Okay.
Oh, come on.
suppose you don't die in a nuclear war. Suppose you still live. Suppose you're mutated. There's radioactivity. You don't have to
Who
die.
says some of us here haven't already been mutated?
I don't.
Okay, a couple of short snappers. How many of you, and you'll have to tell me why, there's only one that I can think of, maybe two, would run for public office in your years ahead? Oh, start with you. For what kind of public office?
Probably one of the MPs, because I don't think the government's being run by the people that are in there now.
You have politics again?
NDP.
NDP. You, what would you run for?
Prime Minister.
Which party?
I don't know, but I know that it depends on your own political thing. You can change parties around.
Your hand was up too.
Federal.
You'd run for federal politics.
Provincial.
Provincial politics. Who else had a hand up? Green sweater.
I'd run for provincial.
And you'd run what party?
Social Credit. Social Credit or Conservative, but probably Social Credit.
Now that's interesting. Number of Social Credit voters are here, aren't they? How many? 5 or 6. Do you think Social Credit has a philosophy?
What does it mean?
No, I'm asking them. Maybe not a fair question, but do you like what they do?
The philosophy is to keep the NDP out.
I like the Social Credit because, well, I don't like the NDP party. That's better because they're a union party. I don't like unions. And Social Credit is basically, well, look at the Social Credit's record over the past 6 years. We've got a, what's the word? Our economy's, you know, like under Barrett, his economy, we had a deficit, the biggest deficit in political history. And under Bennett, we've got a pretty, you know, thing going.
Do you think it's possible to have unity with 9 or 10 provincial premiers cutting at the feet of the Prime Minister, whoever he is?
I think there's got to be a little giving on each side. I think there should be another constitutional conference. I think Trudeau should bring the Constitution home as it is and have his amending form to go by referendum.
Behind you.
I was going to say I'd run for federal politics because the country has to stay together somehow, and they're not doing a good job now.
And on the unity?
Pardon me?
On the unity?
Yeah.
What about the Constitution?
Well, the one thing I hate about the Constitution is the veto for Quebec and Ontario. It makes the whole West and the Far East of Canada second-class citizens simply because of where we live. If the balance of population or the, whatever you call it, moves to the West or farther east, Quebec and Ontario will always have that veto in constitutional conferences, and that's not fair.
Are any of you really proud to be Canadians? Who can make me a speech to be proud to be a Canadian? Who shall I pick? Hands again, please. Young chap there, I haven't heard much from you.
Well, I'm very proud to be Canadian, and I don't support separation of the West, for one thing. And I think Canada can get through all the trouble we're having if we remain together. And
that's good.
I'm very nationalistic. I'm very proud to be Canadian.
Good for you. Who else is going to follow briefly on this? We'll take you first. We'll just go along.
I'm proud to be a Canadian because to be Canadian is to be free and you can do what you want. I don't think there's any other place in the world where you have such a variety of things you can do. There's a lot of, you live in Russia, you're in a controlled society, you're told what to do. In Canada, you can go about as you like, and you've got more of an identity.
Yeah, I'm proud to be Canadian because of the freedom that we have. Like.
Next one. I think it was you. Yes?
I'm incredibly proud to be Canadian because of our reputation with other countries. If I go traveling or anything, you can bet I'll be marching that Canadian flag around because my family is all Canadian. We've been Canadian since my great-grandparents. And it really bothers me when people say that Canadians are apathetic.
Because they're not.
They're not. Well, I'm not. And I know a lot of people that aren't.
One thing I want to add, I'm proud to be Canadian because the opportunity was given. A lot of people in here doesn't know how lucky they are, but fortunately, I do. From where I came from, opportunity is a pretty small thing. You have to really fight for it. But in Canada, they were given to you. All you have to do is work a bit harder, and you will have it.
Little guy with the girl at the back.
I'm proud to be Canadian, but it's really hard trying to find out more about our country because, well, there isn't a Canadian Studies course that's approved by the provincial government.
We don't have a Canadian Studies course?
No Canadian Studies.
Not here?
In Coquitlam, there's a course approved by the municipality, but it's not approved by the provincial government, so we can't take that course if it counts as one of the courses.
Anybody else I'm proud to be a Canadian? This is the most unusual attitude for me. 1 minute to go. Any questions for me? No questions.
Are you proud to be a Canadian?
Very much so. And I'm not a separatist. I'd fight not to be a separatist. I think if we've talked this long, we can talk a little bit longer. I don't like what Trudeau's doing and the way he's bringing it back, but in the final crunch, I'd probably vote for it. You know, because we can always change it through Clark or Trudeau or McEachern or Broadbent. The Lord knows, he might live long enough to become Prime Minister to live to be 110. And I want to thank you very much indeed. And I think we'll get a good I think we can probably get a good half-hour program out of your efforts this afternoon. And I'll just give you one guarantee of lack of freedom and some censorship. nothing will be on the program to make Centennial School look bad. Thank you very much. Reporter Steve Wyatt has got a study for you on progress with bilingualism, French immersion in our schools. You'll learn a thing or two in both languages with Steve Wyatt.
Jack, this building is a showplace in Vancouver. Inside there are 475 children between the ages of 5 and 12 learning the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic. What makes this school different is that the children have begun their education in French in a decidedly English-speaking city.
Il est allé en tramway chez le dentiste. Très bien.
These students are in the first grade of an early immersion program at Vancouver's elite bilingual school, L'École Bilingue. For their second year in the elementary school system, 100% of their education is in French. Their teacher, Lillian Doucette, is conducting the daily round of conversational exercises. Her students are just part of the mushrooming population in BC's French immersion programs. In the early years, 1972 and 73, 131 students were enrolled in immersion programs in one school district. By 1977, there were 862 students in 3 districts. In 1979, that jumped to over 2,000 in 12 districts. And this year, there are over 4,400 immersion students throughout BC. Enrollment has been increasing 45 to 50% every year. The principal of L'École Bilingue is Andy Talmanis. He arrived in Vancouver last summer from Montreal.
What we attempt to do in kindergarten is carry out the normal type activities that are done in kindergarten, except have centers of interest, such as the family or the store or my friends, that have a certain vocabulary around them. We also introduce them to pre-reading, to the sounds of the French language, more or less the same way we would introduce English, except that it happens to be in French. Now, the teacher communicates to the children in French. She would have to be an actor as well as a teacher, obviously. Eventually, we expect the children to respond in French, particularly in what we call the circle learning situation. Certainly at the kindergarten level, we expect youngsters will talk among themselves in English. The responses to the teacher might not be fully possible always in French.
No,
but it's an introduction to the language.
Is it always 100% French? Right up into the 7th grade?
No, it's not. In our particular school, kindergarten grade 1 and 2 are 100% in French. In grade 3, we introduce 40% English, which consists of language arts as well as science and social studies. And from 4 to 7, it's 50% French, 50% English, with same subjects as I mentioned already.
Un synonyme pour détruire. Oui. Démolir. Oui.
This is the grade 5 class of teacher and vice principal Barbara Gauthier. By now, her students' lessons are divided equally between English and French. And their bilingual success has been funded in part by the federal government. Ottawa pays 9% of the education costs for each student. Money well spent for 10-year-old Trevor White.
Tell me about the school. What is special about it?
Well, there's a lot more marks because there's English and French. And we have math and always in French, which can be interesting, and we go through different subjects, like fractions, and we're doing that right now. And we do most socials and science. We do that in English.
Tell me something. When you're playing outside of school with your friends here from school, do you use French then, or do you use mostly English?
No, we only use French in the mornings when we have French.
How about when you're at recess, though? Do you speak in English then, or French?
Yeah, we speak in English. It seems to be a bit easier.
Have you ever thought, has it ever worried you that you may be falling behind some of your friends in the normal English schools in Vancouver?
Well, I might, but I don't think too much, because we do learn a lot of English. We're doing a lot of homework and things in English and French.
I suppose, too, you have an advantage over everybody else, too, because you have 2 languages.
Yeah, well, a lot of my friends have 3 because they know another language, but I know a few other languages, only a few words or letters, not very much. The French and English I know the most of.
And you think this is really going to help you in the future when you go on to college? Or?
Yeah, I really do.
If I just put the ammonium chloride and the calcium hydroxide into the cobalt chloride, then nothing really would happen.
All of which is French enough. and these grade 7 students will become the second class at L'École Bilingue to complete their entire elementary education in both languages. Most of the students will continue their bilingual education through to the 12th grade. For 12-year-old Graham Cove, the benefits are plentiful.
For the about first 2 or 3 months, I had quite a bit of troubles, but then I started to get used to it and started to understand the language, and then it got pretty simple.
Do you have any idea why your parents decided to send you to a French immersion program?
I'm not sure. I know when they found out about it, they got me signed up right away. Yeah.
Have you enjoyed it?
Oh, yeah.
Why is that? Why is it good for you?
Well, I can get a lot of different jobs if I can speak the 2 languages. And it just helps knowing it, like I can conversate with other people that I couldn't usually. And of course there's a Quebec exchange coming up and I can go on that now.
What are your plans? Is there an objective you're aiming at now for the future?
Not really. I'm kind of torn between what I want to be when I get older.
Mm-hmm. You think overall that learning in French has been good for you?
Yeah.
Better than the normal style of education?
Yeah, it would be.
Mm-hmm.
In January, the Ministry of Education sponsored a workshop on French immersion. The federal government pays for 50% of the startup costs for each program, but the demand still outstrips supply. The BC chairman of the National Parents for French organization wants more immersion programs.
I think French immersion is the best and the easiest way for children to learn a second language. An immersion program, it doesn't even have to be French. If you really are convinced that it would be worthwhile for your children to learn a second language, then I think that's the way to do it.
What motivated you, first of all, to send your children to French immersion school?
Frustration with the way I had been taught French in high school, and having come out of that experience with nothing useful, and learning that there was a program that made an awful lot of sense, that would be very easy for my children, would not be any kind of a traumatic experience for them. And it just made a lot of sense to, if they had an opportunity to learn something as significant as a whole second language in school, then why not do that?
The formation of an organization called Parents for French would indicate some problem in the system. What problems are you faced with?
I think the organization began because a group of parents from across the country recognized that they were having similar experiences in trying to get improvements to programs, not only trying to get immersion programs started, but trying to get improvements to traditional French second language teaching. And we found out that the problems in Halifax were the same as problems in Victoria, and that there was a pool of information that we should be sharing, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Are there enough French immersion schools in this province?
No, there aren't. No. There are parents in at least 5 to 10 districts who are right now asking their administrations for immersion. Several of those parents asked last year and didn't get anything for this September.
Should second language training be mandatory in the elementary grades?
You mean a traditional program?
Let's say immersion. Should it be mandatory?
No, absolutely not. It would never work if it were mandatory. Both the child and the parents have to be interested in the program, and there has to be support at home.
Où cactus est-elle cachée? Dans la chambre à coucher ou dans le vestibule? Obéis. Réponds-moi.
I've got friends on the bus, and some of them go to York House, and some of them take B&B and some don't. And I always kind of go, how's your French coming along? You know, not as in a show-off way, but just sort of curiosity, because it's fun to see if you could carry out a conversation in French with your friends. And some of them go, I don't want to talk about French. And some of them, well, they try it, but they're sort of shy and they don't want to.
I was watching you in that play last week, and you seemed quite astute in the language. I don't know.
Well, I got nervous. Like, I didn't exactly get nervous. I sort of stuttered and forgot my lines before I had it. But I tend to sort of forget the words when I'm talking to a teacher. I sort of get nervous. It's not that I don't know it, it's just that I get sort of shy and nervous.
At one point during your education here, did you ever feel that you were falling behind your friends in just the English schools? say, in the English skills?
Yeah, sometimes I get the feeling that, well, we're sort of behind, but I mean, English is the language in Vancouver, and I'd always get a chance to catch up on it. So it's not like going to school in Quebec and not being able to. Well, in Quebec you could catch up, but it'd be harder. But in Vancouver, I think it's better to be more advanced in French and a little bit behind in English, because you can catch up a lot more easily in English than you can in French.
Do you feel you have a special advantage?
I don't really think about it all that much, you know. It's just an everyday fact of life.
And where do they go from there? To Winston Churchill Secondary School for a start. It has the first graduating class from L'École Bilingue. Their 8th grade is split equally between English and French. And in accordance with the Vancouver School Board commitment, they will be the first class to complete their entire public school education in both languages.
I'm going to the Tory Leadership Review Convention in Ottawa this weekend to see what we can dig up and stir about, and I'll be giving you my report on Clark's future and other aspects of the Conservative Convention in Ottawa Monday, 9 a.m. precisely.